A man ought to labor with his feet planted firmly in the earth, not roam around like you flirtatious vagabonds.
Despite my differences, the weapons get stronger all the same. Given time, technique never fails. Besides, it helps me forget the sheer terror of her.
My witless daughter finally came home, just as oblivious as she's always been. At least now I can keep an eye on her.
The girly boy here. She's crestfallen and can scarcely swing a blade. But she has a gift for spirit tuning.
My girl knows her stones, but she's always out prancing about.
Who'd stay with an ugly brute who only knows how to smith? Absurd.
I'll remain with Hewg. He made me who I am today. I'd like to return the kindness, in whatever small way I can.
Do look after the girl.
Don't spend your whole life in transit, you hear?
Can the gruffest of individuals soften under the right circumstances? Those who are dedicated to their trade are often absorbed by its wonder, art, and discovery. Whether one is a smith, stone trader, spirit tuner, or merchant, it can be hard to see past needing to make one's own way in an unforgiving land. Amongst these self-absorbed people of the trade are a few that have let down their guard to experience something more valuable than the pride of one's own trade, love and connection. Lenigrast and Hewg are the dad smiths of the Soul series, and serve as two fine examples of good fathers in Drangleic and the lands between. Welcome back to the Elden Ring is Dark Souls 2 series. When looking at both Lenigrast and Hewg and the relationships to their daughters, both adopted and biological, it is easy to see how they go beyond the role of simple NPC blacksmiths and have much more of something to offer to the player in terms of storytelling and FromSoft titles. These two stand as unique in that there is a bit more going on with their past and present through their relationships with both Chloanne and Roderica, respectively. So let's take a closer look at the dad smiths of the Souls series. Lenigrast in Dark Souls 2 functions as the main blacksmith residing in Majula. His demeanor is more reclusive and irritated than eager to help the player compared to Andre from Dark Souls 1. After opening his workshop with his key purchased from Melentia, he returns to work smithing for the bearer of the curse or anyone else who might need his services. What's striking about Lenigrast's appearance is that he is noticeably undead. His skin has a greenish tone to it, alongside his eyes being almost completely whitened out. The only things he seems to remember are his smithing trade and his daughter. Upon our first meeting with Lenigrast at work, he says, "You, stand back. This is dangerous work. The name's Lenigrast, just a simple blacksmith. And you are another useless traveler. A man ought to labor with his feet planted firmly in the earth, not roam around like you flirtatious vagabonds." This dialogue indicates that Lenigrast has strong beliefs about one's profession and work, and that honest work is the best work. The idea of adventuring sounds awful to him and a waste of time. Typical Dad Smith lecturing, if you will. He also expresses similar sentiment to the bearer of the curse and his daughter, stating, "Drat, you're worse than my reckless daughter. Don't spend your life in transit, you hear." Again, Lenigrast mentions the belief that honest work and not seeking adventure or opportunity beyond commonplace occupation is a waste of time. Much like other characters of Dark Souls 2, he seems to be suffering from memory loss. Beyond his ornery attitude towards the player, he does express some relief when Chloanne arrives to Majula. He expressed his happiness and relief that his daughter has returned. Thus, one can assume that Chloanne is the daughter that he had spoken of to the bearer of the curse earlier. He even suggests that the bearer ask for stones to trade. Chloanne is a stone trader looking to make her way in Drangleic on her own independent merits. She sees her trade as an escape from the suffocation of the hustle and bustle of Vol'gin, a land that thrives on individual enterprise to the most extreme extent. When meeting the bearer of the curse, she will eventually realize the futility of seeking her own fortune and success in Drangleic and will return to Majula. When she returns to Majula, she will notice Lenigrast smithing away in his workshop. She will comment on how he's a hollow and looks a lot like her father. She asks, "You see that blacksmith over there? Is he one of those hollows? He seems to be eyeing me up. He sort of looks like my father. He's a blacksmith too, you see. The poor man's such a worrywart. But he wouldn't follow me out here, would he?" Beyond this questioning, she never interacts with him. She, like her father, is experiencing amnesia and memory loss to the point where they are both forever a stone's throw away from one another, yet they never end up speaking to one another. At the very least, Lenigrast is relieved to have her in his sights once again. In the lands between, another salt of the earth dadsmith can be found. Blacksmith Hewg serves as the blacksmith in the Round Table Hold, the Tarnished headquarters. While on initial reaction his demeanor is calm, the Tarnished quickly realize that he is in fact a prisoner to the Hold. His purpose lies in the command given to him by Queen Marika the Eternal to forge a weapon to slay a god. He remains constant in maintaining this goal to forge this god-slaying weapon for the Tarnished, even when the chains eventually break. He is tied to his trade, likely due to his fear of Marika and his pride in his work as a smith. His form as a misbegotten has him treated and seen as lesser than even the Tarnished in the lands between. Much like the Hollows of Dark Souls, misbegotten are treated with disdain and disgust by others, especially the ruling bodies or quote-unquote gods. Hewg also details a small piece of his past that he was indebted to a spirit tuner long ago. Besides being a smith, he knows the art of spirit tuning because of this relationship that he had with this spirit tuner from his past. Spirit tuning is the sacred art of upgrading spirit ashes to fight alongside their summoners. Roderika assumes the role of Hewg's adopted daughter during the events of the game. We originally find her outside of Stormvale Castle, having escaped the grafting being performed there. She is a noble descent and is indicated by her attire. She eventually heads to the Round Table at the Tarnished suggestions, where she becomes acquainted with Blacksmith Hewg. Hewg notices the hue in her eyes being similar to the spirit tuner that he had met before. With some convincing by the player, he agrees to teach Roderika the art of spirit tuning. She is thrilled at the prospect due to her feeling purposeless. When the Tarnished tells her of her potential Hewg sees in her, she says, "You're telling me I possess some kind of gift? I don't believe you. But if I do have this talent, and goodness knows it would be my first, I suppose I should try to hone it. Shouldn't I? I'll ask Master Hewg to teach me." Certainly he does appear intimidating and holds no love for us Tarnished, but I know he's trapped here at the Round Table Hold, so I can tell he's a gentle soul underneath it all. She describes Hewg as a gentle soul, overlooking his appearance and demeanor, showing that he has paternal instinct about him. She eventually becomes closer to him as the story progresses. She begins to hone her talents over time, and Hewg is impressed with her abilities, stating that she has a gift for the craft. The relationship develops where Hewg takes on the role of her adopted father. He states, "The girl has come a long way. As ever, time and technique have made her stronger. 'Tis good to see. An imprisoned monster does not deserve an apprentice or a daughter, but at times, that's precisely what she feels like to me. I've gone soft, and it isn't easy." Roderika is able to soften Hewg's defensive and closed-off demeanor. He begins to see himself as a father, something that he didn't think would ever be possible. Their relationship unfortunately leads to sadness where Hewg eventually forgets Roderika, the Tarnished, and his purpose. He suffers from memory loss much like the denizens of Drangleic in Dark Souls 2. Roderika pleads that the Tarnished uses the god-slaying weapon to slay Marika and save them all. She wants to see Hewg's work come to fruition and that the end can be finally reached for everyone. Both smiths, while very different in their presentation, do express very similar qualities along with their respective daughters. Both Lenigrast and Hewg are unique in the series in that they have a more in-depth story than other smiths such as Andre. They have a bit more of a backstory and character arc than just simply being a merchant eager to help the player character upgrade their weapons. Hewg's story to me seems like an evolution of Lenigrast's story in that it's more in-depth despite still being a simple character arc. Hewg and Roderika have a bit more closure while Lenigrast and Cloanne are at a bit of a standstill with one another. Both dadsmiths are outcasts in their respective lands, where Lenigrast is a hollow who is in the much more extreme stages of hollowing given his appearance and memory issues. Hewg as a misbegotten is seen as a lesser life form by most in the Lands Between, even more than the Tarnished. Both, of course, are paternal to some degree. Lenigrast is relieved to see his daughter again, and Hewg is able to shed off his closed exterior to build a connection with Roderica. Both also eventually suffer from memory loss as the story progresses. Both are examples of good fathers for the most part. They have affection for their respective adopted and biological daughters and want for their safety. This is a rare occurrence in these titles since fathers tend to be rather selfish and cruel to their children in most cases. Hewg and Lenigrast were better dads than Gwyn or Radagon ever were, for example. Both Hewg and Lenigrast stick by their daughters to the very end. Both Dad Smith's daughters also have similar motives and backstories as well. Both daughters seek purpose and are fleeing their homeland. Chloanne flees Vol'gin to make her way through her stone trade, and Roderica's lack of seeing the guidance of grace allows her to pursue a greater purpose of spirit tuning. They too stick by their respective fathers until the end of both games. What Lenigrast and Hewg show us is that simple merchants can have intriguing backstories in these games. Sometimes the simplest and most basic of character arcs can be just as compelling as the more grandiose events of both Drangleic and the Lands Between. Fathers don't have to be biological, but rather by action or choice. Sometimes the most rigid and closed-off individuals can show affection under the right circumstances. If Drangleic and the Lands Between had more Dad Smiths, perhaps they would be much brighter places. Thanks so much for watching. If I happen to have missed any connections or similarities between Lenigrast or Hewg or Chloanne and Roderica, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Out of all the blacksmiths we have seen so far in FromSoft, Hewg has definitely going to be my favorite due to his compelling character arc and relationship with Roderica. Seeing them grow together to most players is probably just a small cute detail, but there are so many lessons and takeaways to be had from it. I also find that it's the perfect evolution of Lenigrast and Chloanne from DS2. Their lack of engagement with one another at the very end still rubs me the wrong way to this day, as there is so much more potential to include a nice resolution to both their stories. So it's nice to see these ideas established in DS2 here in Elden Ring to the fullest extent. Feel free to also let me know who your favorite merchant is from the FromSoft Souls series and why. Again, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and if you are new to the channel, please consider subscribing as I frequently upload out-of-the-box takes and content on Souls and other notable game franchises. Take care, and I hope to see you all in the next one.
I'll be around if you make it back.
Allow me to call you this just once before it ends. My lord. For that is what you are.